wildcard. You can combine it also with words, letters that you know from the file name. And I'm going to say underline. So for the second to last character, which is, we can see the second to last are these characters here. I can see that they're all zeros. So no need to give it a range. I can just type in 0. Next to that, I can open up a bracket and say, okay, now I would like to have a range here. The range shall be from 0 to 5. Close the bracket. And surely enough, only those files get printed out without any difficulties of whatsoever. Now this should work like this as well. There we go. So they all get printed out once again without any problems of whatsoever. I have left the underline there. Not sure exactly why, maybe just missed it, didn't see it, but doesn't really matter. Even if this underline wasn't here, as I said, asterisk stands for any character, absolutely, so no problems there. Anyway, you can inject these ranges pretty much anywhere you want within your file and place text in front, in behind, or even in between. And then you can also give it wildcards and stuff like that. I strongly recommend that you experiment with this as much as you can, as these are some of the things which will be used to a rather large, these are the sort of things, these tricks, so to say, that are used by network administrators all the time to generate scripts which automate tasks, primarily because you won't always know the names of the files and you will need to use them. Of course, you can use locate or find, but to actually run locate or find every time to search through the whole system for the sake of file names is resource expensive, and you don't really want to do that. Rather, instead, when you need to, for example, grab a file name, put it into a script, a bash script, and then do something with that file in bash script, usually edit it, change it in some way, change some values in it, then you would use things like these to pull the file names out of a, let's say, out of a configuration, out of etc or out of log file, out of log directory, and then you would do it. For example, logs, if you're logging if you're logging some sort of activity, if you want to see what is going on and you've enabled logging, we will deal with this subject more extensively later. But what you say is that, okay, this log gets created now for the activity of the file, and then after a certain amount of time has elapsed, I want you to stop writing to that particular file, create a new one, and continue writing the log so that your individual log files are not too big. And you can manipulate them with greater ease, and they are segmented so you can delete certain parts of it more easily, and so on and so forth. But the naming of those files is basically by index. So you tell the bash script to name the files like 0001 and so on and so forth. Usually would place a date here so you know when it is actually done. If this is not sitting too well with you now, don't worry. I don't want you to worry about it. We will deal with these sort of subjects later on. I'm just giving you an example here of what this particular thing that we have just done is used for. You would want to say, I don't know, list me all the log files that contain a particular month or a year or something of a kind. So you would just put in like a wildcard, and then in the ranges, in this range, you would be able to type in the date pretty much. You would give it a range here in the first one, and then you would give it the second range. So, well, actually, you would just use two. You would type in the range for the month. Which months do you want to be included? I don't know. Like, you obviously wouldn't be able to type in 0 for a month. Rather, instead, you would say from 6th to 8th month in the year 2014. It's 2015 now, but I'm just using a reference. So all the files which contain these sets of numbers shall be printed out. Basically, the month and the year. You want to print all the log files that were made in between the 6th month and the 8th month. That's one way to configure logging. There are of course others, but usually they configure them by date, and this would be one of the methods roughly. This is not the correct syntax because you would actually need to see the file name to figure out the correct syntax. You would probably need to put something in between here, like a minus sign or something of a kind, and then this would make far more sense. But I wouldn't just put a minus sign. I would go about things like this, and this would be very nice. Obviously, if I press enter, ls cannot access no such file or directory. There is nothing under such name in my desktop folder. But doesn't really matter. That's not what I wanted to do today. This is just what I want. This is just an example that I wanted to give to you so that you would understand this with greater clarity. So you see what I've done here. If I am in the folder where the logs are made, I can tell it, okay, all the log files that were made in between 6th and 8th month, 6th and 8th included. Now this is just the syntax. You usually would have a minus separating the month from a year, and then you can specify, okay, these months for this particular year. Then please pull the output, and you would usually put something like this, like grep, and there would be a particular line or something of a kind that you would want to pull out, so you would give a matching expression here, which would be like add, which would be login. So there could be a line login, and you would pull everything that contained a word. You would pull all the lines that contained word login in between on these particular dates. Anyway, as I said, if this last part is not sitting too well with you, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly natural, and just like introducing new subjects at random. And when we actually get to them, you will be at least familiar to a certain extent. But what is important for you to understand today in this particular tutorial is the idea of globbing. So I've had two tutorials thus far on globbing. We've done the wildcards, we've done single character wildcards, we've done particular characters, negating the particular characters, ranges as well. So these five basic ways of these five basic filters, I would say, I would strongly urge you to know them and learn them and experiment with them, primarily because you will be using them extensively as a Linux administrator. That would be all. I would like to bid you all farewell and a ton load of luck. Until next time. Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to go ahead and start talking about input-output redirection. So we have three basic concepts here. We have standard input, standard output, and standard error. What are they? Standard input, well, that would be something that you would type in, that you would use your keyboard to actually input. Let's say type in who am I for the people who have amnesia. Just type in and there you go. I am at the moment root. If I exit root and type in who am I again, I'm gonna get random guy. That would be standard input, me typing in something into the terminal or pretty much anywhere else. Standard output would be this return value that we get here, well, maybe not the return value, but something that gets printed out. It says random guy. That is the username of the current user. Anyway, standard error is useful, how shall I put this, to the point of extreme. Basically, you do something and then your system reports that it can't do it, and it gives you an error message, and that error message 99% of the time you can actually just copy paste onto the internet. The chances of somebody else has encountered the error are pretty high, and if they have, chances that somebody has posted a solution are even higher. Very nice way to troubleshoot things, especially when you get what you need from first try, but usually you have to dig a bit deeper. Anyway, now that you know what standard input, output, and standard error are, let's talk a little bit about why do you need them. I mean, of course, this is used on daily operations primarily because you would want the output of one command to be the input of another. So you're just passing along